Hey everyone, climb on board with me, Lewis, the Mitten Pilot, your airborne guide around the incredible state of Michigan. From the air, we'll get a unique perspective of our amazing state you just can't get from the ground. We'll visit amazing places, see beautiful scenery, meet the most interesting people, and of course, we'll have fun flying. So let's go fly and experience everything the Mitten has to offer. Safe flying and clear blue skies. Hey everybody, thanks for joining. Today we're going to do something a little bit different than I usually do. Normally I just show you videos of me flying around, and honestly a lot of them are well edited. I put a lot of time into making sure that I'm showing the best landings, takeoffs, maneuvers that I can show, but that's not the reality. The reality is I put a lot of effort into making sure that you guys have good content, but sometimes that shows me in essentially what amounts to a perfect light, and that's not the case. Any pilot that's been flying for any amount of time knows that something goes wrong. Maybe you're not necessarily on your game 100%, weather is bad, your camera doesn't work, whatever the case may be, something happens, and one of my goals with this channel is to make sure that I'm always as transparent as I can be, and make sure that you guys have an honest, open view of what the world actually is up in the air. So today, what I'm going to show you is the landing that I made out at St. Clair Shores from my last video that I actually edited out. Now, some of the reason that I edited out was because it kind of looks awkward. We'll go over that here in a minute. The sun shield is in the way for a good part of it. The video's kind of awkward. It's just not the greatest thing to look at, but a big part of it wasn't a very good landing, if I'm being honest. It was perfectly safe, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. I never felt like, if as a student pilot, or even a pilot with hundreds or thousands of hours, every now and then you do something and you get a little knot in your stomach and you say to yourself, that's not right, and then you do a go around, or you abort your takeoff, or something else. You end your maneuver, you do something to stop what you've suddenly realized is not safe. I never had that feeling during any part of this. So as you watch it, again, I will explain sort of why it looks weird and some of the things that were going on. And of course you can make your own opinions, and please share them with me and let me know what you would have done different, or some advice for me or something else. But again, I will reiterate, I never felt out of control. I never felt anything couldn't have been stopped if it needed to. I never felt like I was looking over the edge, if you'll allow me the expression. So we're going to dive in with this video. You can see here I'm approaching the airport from the north. I didn't even realize how big it was. You can look at charts and stuff on the map, and you just never really get a sense until you go there. This is a pretty big, my point is, it's a pretty big airport for not having a tower. And again, I will point out that my apologies, I left that sunshade down so you can't really see the river in the background, the Detroit River, but you get a good sense of the layout of the airport. The winds were out of the west, so that's to my right in this view here, and you're going to see that I'm going to overfly the field and make a very steep right turn, a teardrop entry into that airport. So, all right, so there's a good view of getting that approach lined up, and like I said, we're going to turn a hard right. I decided on the hard right because as I started making the teardrop, I realized I could be in the approach path for the other runway. It wouldn't have been the right runway for somebody to run at, but I like leaving lots and lots of safety margin. So you'll see I make a pretty steep turn here in a second. So here's that steep right turn. Make sure I show a couple of good views of this. You can see exactly how steep it was. I don't know, probably a 35-40 degree bank. I can't really see the instruments from any of my camera views, but you can see it's pretty steep. Again, not a big deal. That's pretty normal. So the maneuver that I'm actually practicing here isn't a standard landing. It's a power off 180. It's an emergency procedure that you learn as a commercial applicant, a commercial pilot applicant, where you simulate that the engine fails and you need to make a landing, and you've got to do it quickly. You just don't have a lot of time. You need to get down. You have no control over the engine because, of course, it's simulated that it's out, and you want to get down and hit your spot. Now, for the I almost said practical test standards. They're not called that anymore. I'm showing my age. But for the standards for the commercial applicant, you have to hit that mark within a 200-foot spot. So the procedures normally to come in a little bit high and drop a lot of altitude very quickly. And what you're going to see now is as I turn final, it looks very, very steep. And it's probably because it is. Partially because the camera angle is just showing you a very zoomed in view. And with the sunshade in the way, it looks very, very steep. It's not nearly as steep as it appears, I promise. So here we come. I'm doing a slip. You can see my cowling pointed to the right, and I'm slipping down to the left to lose a lot of altitude to hit this spot right about there. That's what my aiming point was here. You can see that I just missed it, and I come down, and I'm a little off center, and I fixed that, and you can see I overcorrected a little and bounced and decided I've made my landing, I'm off and away, and there I go. So that is the crux of what we're talking about here. We'll come back around and we'll look at it again just very quickly, and also talk through one more time as we make that right turn and get lined up on the downwind. I'm parallel to the runway, it's off to my left. I'm going to pull the power here in a second. I think you'll be able to hear that on the video. I pull it all the way back. Carb heat is on, of course, because it's always on in a 150 on approach to make sure that the engine doesn't really shut off and I have a real emergency. And what I'm looking for here is a spot in the air where I know I can make that runway and hit those landing marks right on the button within that 200 feet I mentioned, and successfully land the airplane in an emergency with no engine power. So we make that turn. I'm peeking out the left hand side, maybe even raise my wing a little bit here, you'll see, to get a good look and get aligned, and then finish that turn onto final and make this final approach. And again, I apologize, it looks really, really steep. It is not as steep as it looks. If it was not a stabilized approach, I would have bailed by now, but I felt very comfortable. I've done this dozens of times, and I felt pretty good about where we were gonna land, and I touched down just a little bit longer than I would have liked. Wouldn't have been to the standard. I get that. That's what practice is all about. And made my landing and overcorrected just a little tiny bit, bounce, and off on my way. No harm, no foul. But again, I want to stress that folks will send in comments, and I encourage that. But I'm sharing just to show you something that wasn't 100%. I understand that. Not my best one. That's why we go out and practice. My takeaways are to make sure that I get a little bit more in the center, which would have required less correction. Certainly I missed my spot, so that requires some more practice and training and familiarity with that particular maneuver. But all in all, it was a perfectly fine landing. If I had decided to land, I could have had plenty of room to actually come to a stop on that runway, and no big deal. So my takeaway is just more practice and a little bit less power coming in. I could have come in a little bit less steep. I might even try 40 degrees of flaps. I honestly don't remember. It's been so long now since I've made this flight. I might have had 40 degrees of flaps in anyway. So with that, I could have come in quite a bit slower, maybe at the same descent angle, but had a much slower airspeed, which would have made the correction less sort of obnoxious looking, even with the camera angle. Anyway, there you go. Again, I appreciate whatever comments or feedback you have. about either the flying or the actual recordings. But I really appreciate everybody watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and see more of my really cool content. Thanks. See ya. Alright, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, click that like button and make sure that you subscribe so that you can follow along with all of my Mitten Pilot adventures. Thanks for watching. See ya.